Hi, Travis with Splunk here. Dude, the other day I got a question around the way Splunk looks at metrics data. This person was actually looking at Windows Task Manager and comparing what they're seeing in there as far as like memory utilization. And it was on memory and why it was different than what they were seeing inside of Splunk. So I went ahead and dug into it to see if there was a difference and decided to create a video to show everyone else what I had found. So first off, let's go over to documentation because this is kind of where the problem lies. And if I go over to our Splunk documentation, I'll make sure I have all the links below. We show you how to collect the metrics data for your Windows host via ITSI or IT Essentials Work. You know, IT Essentials Work is that free app that you can go use right now. Don't have to buy the premium app, and it's a great way to get started for bringing in your metrics data and start visualizing it. And I've shown this app, and I think it's a really neat app, especially it doesn't cost anything to use. Now, in this documentation, and I'm going to show you the documentation here real quick, and I'm going to scroll down. It kind of, I don't know if saying leads you the wrong way is the correct verbiage, but at some point, what the documentation, whoever created this document, at some point they picked only certain counters. And counters is like right here with Perfmon process. These are the counters that it's going to collect. And you can, look at them yourself. And this is the information that's going to get sent over to Splunk. So that when it does get sent over to Splunk, you can start using the analytic workspace. So I'll do that. I'll show you the analytic workspace as I accidentally hit the keyboard, but this is what our documentation says to do. And this is what led to the problem for the customer that I was talking with. So let me go over Analytic Workspace and show you what they were seeing. So in here, if you don't know how to get to Analytic Workspace, go to Apps, Search and Reporting, and click on Analytics. But once you start getting your metrics data in, this is a great little spot to learn and figure out how to look at the metrics data that's coming in, especially if you're just starting out with Splunk and you've never used the mstats, mpreview, mcatalog commands, which I have a whole nother video. I'll probably had it linked at the beginning of the thing, or I'll have, just check out my channel. I have videos on this information. But I'm going to add a new filter here, and I want to look at a Windows box. This is just for Windows right now. I haven't been asked anything about the difference in Linux, and this is all the different dimensions that you can pick. I'm going to say host just to save some time, and then I'm going to pick one of my hosts. What I'm going to start with is not my computer because I've made the changes there. I'm going to pick another computer on my network, and you can see here, this is the metrics data I'm collecting: process, processor, system, physical disk, memory. You can go into memory here and see information, but where they were at was process because they wanted to see, and the goal was for this customer to do some benchmarking, performance benchmarking on the process and how much memory that process was really using. So if I come down here and click on working set, that'll add that into there and show you a working set. And what they did is they went in and crafted a search to look at just the one computer and just the one, it's called instance, which I can jump over to a Splunk search, which I'll do right here. I've already got it up and running. So it's mstats, which you can, like I said, you can come in here, chart actions, go to open and search, and you can get to the point that I have here. But I'm just going to jump over here for sake of time and show you here's Virtual Bytes. And that's where in the analytic workspace, and if you look at the default data collection, working set, Virtual Bytes, and private bytes is enabled. Counter that we are collecting, or that this documentation has told you to collect. And if you're like me, I came in here and clicked copied and just pasted that into my inputs.conf file, and that's what I'm collecting. And that's where the shortfall happened, because I can come in here and look at process, and here's Virtual Bytes. I say as usage, just to, I don't feel like typing out, process or latest. I don't feel like typing all out, so I just rename it as usage, where the index data is. This one is showing my computer, and that's because I'm going to bring over Windows Taskman here in a second. And then this is where you can type in instance. So I will actually take OBS out and just look at the field instance. And the instance is what processes are running, executables that are running on your Windows box. And then I do by instance, and then I do an eval to round the number up, take it from bytes to megabytes. And then that's where even you do your round, and then the dot colon space ME, and it makes, gives it a little bit of megabyte to make it look pretty. But here I'm going to rerun the search because I just took out the OBS part. So now I can see my usage. But with Virtual Bytes, I can, sort it and show you, total. I can show you Chrome and how much it's using. But when you compare this to Task Manager, and I'm going to put OBS back in here, type in OBS. When you compare it to Task Manager, which I have it up and running here, should be on the screen, you can see that OBS is, and that's what I'm using right now to record this video, is only using 220 megabytes. But Virtual Bytes, no. Let's try one of the other ones. What was it? Working set? Let's try that one. Maybe that's more what I need. Or private. Actually, let's do private since I have the word bytes in there. So I can put in the word private. And if you want to know where I'm getting like private bytes, either from in here, private bytes, or, in our documentation or your inputs.conf file, or back over here, if I click on working set or virtual bytes, I can add that and private bytes. And I can add those over here. And you can see I'm getting process.private bytes, process.virtual bytes, process.working set. So I can interchange those right here, or I could even create one search that has all three of them if I wanted to. But even, private bytes, that's a lot more than what, if I go back to Windows Task Manager is showing. And the same thing will happen if I come in here and say working set. That I probably could have had this, all queued up, but get to see me struggle typing. And then there's working set, which is closer. So I'm like, okay, that one's closer. So that must be what I'm looking for. But if I go back and look, it's still higher. It's 100 megabytes higher than, what Windows is showing me. Then it's like, okay, how does the Windows Task Manager, what is it actually looking at? And after a lot of digging, I found out that there is another thing called working set private. I was like, oh, so is that just not part of our default inputs.conf file that we include in the TA? Now, I thought that at first until, and I will jump over to there. I went into the TA. So this is my indexer, my deployment server, and this is what I'm deploying out to all of my computers. So I jumped into the TA, Splunk TA Windows. I said, let me look at the default. And let me look at the inputs.conf file. And if I scroll down, and it's far down, and host, I probably could have done a control F or something and made it quicker. But if I keep going down here, you can see Perfmon process. And that's what I was looking at inside of the documentation. But the biggest difference, how many counters are showing up here and how many counters are actually showing up inside of our default inputs.conf file. So you can kind of see that there's a lot more going on in the default inputs.conf file. When I started looking in and asking, what does Windows actually use? It actually uses another counter called working set private, and it's right here at the end. So, I did some digging trying to figure out what's the difference between virtual bytes, private bytes, working set, and the working set. It was the closest because it was just looking at both memory that is in the private. And this is how I understand it. Somebody smarter could probably explain this a lot better than me. But the working set was what is this process, the memory that is private, and the pages shared with other processes. So it's not showing just what this one process is. And virtual bytes, you know, all allocated memory addresses that are actually in the RAM, and then was it private? I think I wrote it down, was a committed virtual memory that cannot be shared with other processes. So this is all these counters are good counters. I mean, what was it? If you wanted to see, maybe memory leaks, you may want to look at that private bytes and show the total, allocated memory over time. That could help you understand what's going on there. But I'm not sure. I'd have to look in like virtual bytes and even the working set and how that could, help you out, troubleshooting your memory across when your Windows servers. But anyway, how can I solve this? I mean, I've got Windows Task Manager looking at working set private and giving me that number, but I'm not collecting it. Can I just take this counter and put it into my inputs.conf file? You sure can. And that's what I did on my one box here in my home office that I'm using right now to do this recording. So if I go back to the analytic workspace, you can see that I have one of my other computers, not mine, filtered down, and there's only working set. Now, what I did is I did go into my inputs.conf file, and I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to say host, and then I'm going to pick a dimension. Dimension's going to be my computer. Then I'm going to click apply. And when it comes up, when we see working, now I have two options, set and set private. So I can add set private. Now this one's not going to split by the instance. I mean, I could come over here and find instance and start splitting and it'll give me the top 5. I wonder if OBS would be on the top 5. Nope. But it's giving me the top 5. I could then go and say, hey, let's go open and search and start modifying the search to look at the data and look for the instance that I want to do some benchmarking on. But I've already got my search here. I think all I have to do is dash private. I believe that's, nope. Let me go back to here. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me just copy this. And then come in here and update this. Yeah. And now I will get, and I did a star. I mean, I could have put just OBS 64 and not see the other thing, but yeah, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But now I have a number that's much smaller. And once I bring in my Windows Task Manager, I mean, that's pretty spot on. I mean, it's just a little bit off, and it really depends on, I'm doing the last hour and I do the latest number. I want to see the latest number if I'm trying to do some benchmarking. I could put average in here. This is where you'll have to decide how you want to visualize this data. So what am I going to do for, I've got this being collected on one computer. I want it for the other computers in my house. That's where I'm going to utilize my deployment server. So if I go back to Config Explorer, which I have here, I could, easily just copy this and go into my local copy of the inputs.conf file and update that, which if you'd like to see that, I'll do that now. Here, this I don't have. I will say, there's two ways that you can go about with the Windows TA. You could create a local folder and put your inputs.conf file there and do it that way. That's really easy to manage. For me, I like to, because, I was like, I'm just going to leave the Windows TA alone completely. And I created my own When inputs, now if you watched my other video, this can cause problems because if you have scripts that are in this Windows TA or like the Nix TA where I had problems, you'll either have to hard code where those scripts are located or move those scripts into whatever app you create. Like I created this Windows input or Win input. But here I'm going to click on local inputs.conf file. And if we scroll down, we can see Perfmon CPU, memory, network, and then process. And you can see I word for word from our documentation, that's all I have. And now, after I put this one in, I may play with my computer here at the house and see if there's any other. I may just load them all the counters up that's in the default and see what else I get. And or I may just load one up at a time and see if any of them break. I mean, that's testing that you can do yourself. But here I'm actually going to switch over to my Splunk indexer, which is also my deployment server. And yeah, VI. I'm already in that when inputs local, and I'm gonna do that VI on the inputs.conf file. Then I'm going to can't really I'm moving the scroll wheel like I'm in a Windows box. Now I'm over to Linux box, and now I've got to come in here, add that. I may have to go copy. Yeah, let me go back over. I don't remember if I copied that from the default folder. You can enable, and I will say this, you can enable Config Explorer to edit and modify your files. I don't remember if I have that enabled in my home office. I think I do. But for best practice, I'd be careful enabling that because, somebody has the right permissions. They can just modify your config files from a GUI. Here, let's hit I. We're going to insert, go over one. And I'm going to have to actually need to get rid of that, space, looks like. And then I need this, not that, this, that. Can't type today. Y'all are watching me. There, I should be able to do that. Then escape, right and quit. And now I've got my deployment server updated. Just tell all of my agents to check in, and then that setting should be pushed out, which I could validate that setting locally, or if I have a typo and I know, I can come back in here and fix it after this video. That's where, I mean, we do have good documentation. I mean, I always praise our documentation, but whoever did decide to create that documentation, I don't know if it's because of some of the stuff that's included in the content packs for IT Essentials Work and IT Service Intelligence, and they decided not to include all of these different counters. They kind of streamlined it, hey, these meet the bill. I don't know why. All I know is if you see that and you really want to see how much memory and be able to compare it to Task Manager, go and grab that counter, working set private, and put that into your Splunk environment. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. And as always, happy Splunking.